Saturday night, Bearded and Mr. John talking movies, man.
Yes.
How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing good. I'm excited because this is gonna be a fun one for sure.
I feel like when we take a couple of weeks off, I feel like I get pumped for when we come back.
Right? Because and I'm glad that maybe it's not gonna be great for our views, but I'm just glad that we're back into like just movies and we don't have to we've been on comic book movies for like 2 months and we're comic book shows and I'm just gonna I need a break from comic book movies. Like
this is a different kind of outlet.
Yes.
All right, well then let me fire up this beginning intro that I forget to play every time.
Ew.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for Drinks and Movies with your hosts, Bearded Comic Bro and John from John's Comics with Kids. Ladies and gentlemen, buckle up for Drinks and Movies.
Charlie's favorite thing. She's like, I love that intro.
I still want her to parody it.
Right? Is that the same music for Comic Talk Live? It might be. You can't do private chat with me. I read everything.
That's why I just didn't want to call you out.
Call me out on everything.
You did it first anyways, so it doesn't matter. So I'll call it. But I was like
that attitude. We had Ruben Guzman always early in the chat doing Cowabunga fam. Good to see you, man. Chaos was here for a second, and I would comment, hey, check the description box down below because it does tell you we are talking about all-time favorite Best Picture winners. Flashpoint is in the chat. Good to see you, brother.
Looks like Flashpoint's got some drinks. He's ready to go.
Right. Hello, Travis is here. Oh, I'm hearing a little echo. I don't know if it's just me.
I'm not. Is it from? Am I giving you an echo?
Maybe just a little bit. I don't know. We got Michael and Riley from the Downright Nerdy podcast here. Good to see you guys having dinner. I understand. That's how it works. Rob Boswell is here. Woo, woo. Woo. And I think I got everybody. Oh, nope. Sorry. The Slab Dragon says his power came back on just in time. That's meant to be. And we got White Whale Comics. Hello, Alec. Good to see you, man. So we had this plan. I should say Greg had this great plan for the month of April. We're going to be looking at the Academy Awards, specifically Best Picture.
Yeah. And because it came to me because we did Snyder movies last month with the release of Snyder Cut. We're like, let's try to stay relevant. And I was like, maybe we do Oscar movies. And I felt like it was a prime time because it seemed like everything that was being nominated was streaming. And it seemed like then a week later, everything got knocked off. And I'm like, great. But it's still going to make for some fun times, I think.
Absolutely. And then we thought we would pair that tonight with all the previous winners of the Best Picture Oscar at the Academy Awards.
And man, I know we're going to make so many people mad by either mentioning movies that we mention or not mentioning movies.
Right.
I think there's 92, I think is what I counted.
Is that how many Best Picture winners? There were a bunch. Yeah. And we were only allowed ourselves 10. So I don't know Greg's list. He doesn't know my list.
We're going
I'm going to try to quickly load posters for the movies that Greg mentions, just so that we have a visual. But it's going to take me a second. He'll just vamp as always. I've loaded the ones for mine, and we'll just see what happens. We could be talking about only 10 movies if we perfectly agree on all 10 movies, or we could be talking about a full 20 if there is just zero agreement across the board.
So here's what's funny, I think, too, is you've also preloaded movie posters that you think I'm going to talk about. So I think that's awesome. I'm kind of curious in the chat before we hop into anything, though. I want to know how many movies, because we're not blowing smoke up your butt. We seriously don't know each other's lists. We probably have ideas of each other's lists because we've done movies for a year. How many movies do you think John and I are going to agree on out of 10? Is it going to be 0 to
What's
10?
the over under? Yeah, right.
What are your picks? How many movies that John and I agree on of our favorite movies?
Hello, Gore Vidal and Jennifer from Comic Books Will Break Your Heart.
And while we give them some time, I think we should let the people know what we're drinking.
And yeah, exactly. I want to also mention that apparently my good friends TJ and Alec have horrible taste in movies. So just gonna walk away.
All right, I'm not worried about making TJ then and Alec Matt.
I'm doing the usual boring Jamesons here. I got that set up, and I've got a little bit of Woodford Reserve here if I want to top it off at some point. Right. What are you doing?
Going classic, the Brewdog, the
Nice.
Columbus Brewery. It's a blackcurrant milkshake IPA, really good. And then the classic, a little bourbon to top it off. I'm going basic though tonight too. I'm embracing my inner Flashpoint and using some Jack here. So
hey, so maybe we're going a little basic tonight. Maybe our picks will be just as basic. Who knows?
So we've got 4. Rob says 4.
A countdown, right? 4.
Jennifer says 3. Gore says 2. Werewolf says maybe 2. Goose egg.
John has weird picks. See, here's the thing. I think you're going to be shocked at how how much of a basic B I am. You might just be surprised.
Yeah,
and I feel like you hate agreeing with people with good opinions. John Wick 3. Come on now, guys. Come on. We're already going to upset this chat. I can already tell.
Yeah, but I also know like you don't have a soft spot for the classics like some do.
So yeah, that's a great discussion point. Real quickly, I picked 5 movies that are older than me, and 5 movies that are younger than me, or within my age, my birth, whatever, my lifetime.
Holy cow! 5 that are older than you.
Yes.
And 5 that are younger than you.
I was born in 1977.
I have. Okay. Not that many. So, all right. This is going to be. We're definitely going to be splitting. I think I have 2 that are older than me.
Sadly, Jennifer, I don't have my own brand shirts at this point. What I do have is a King John Free shirt that you can get from the Comic Core's t-shirts online, but that's really the only shirt you're going to find with my face on it unless you do it yourself.
I need that one then. I do, because I feel like it's only appropriate.
It's hilarious. I make the Fast and Furious joke, but realistically, the best movie doesn't get nominated. I agree. That's a great comment. We should have a moment for that as well. These are obviously not necessarily going to be our all-time favorite movies. These are just the best movies the movies that we like the most of the films that have won Best Picture, which makes for an unusual selection, because oftentimes, to Alec's point, my favorite movie of the year is not even nominated.
Yeah.
So it's a tricky list that you're working from.
Yeah, it is, because I mean I'm already started going through some of the ones for this year, and I'll say like there are some that I'm like, yup, and there are others I'm like, I won't watch this again. Like, and so I think you get that with a lot of Best Picture. So it is a loaded, it's like, are they really the best movie? But I do feel like at least the Best Pictures, for the most part, the ones that do win, I feel like I usually at least like it.
Yeah, there's not that many Best Picture winners that I'm like, that movie is horrible.
Right. There's a lot that I won't
just because the movie might rub you wrong. Like, was it Elaine on Seinfeld was like, The English Patient was like, she hated the movie The English Patient. And it was just her thing, right? I have a feeling this is going to happen a lot too. No, 8 Mile did not win Best Picture, and Eminem did not get nominated for an Oscar as far as I remember.
He did for a song. He won it for a song.
I'm saying acting. I was saying acting.
No.
So like the movies have to have one Best Picture.
Yeah, not even nominated. They've got to win.
I disagree with the terms hot and garbage, but I understand if you wanted a different movie to win instead. It's kind of like people who, we could get into it, but I know that like because of a different movie that might be nominated in a certain year, you might hate on a certain. So I always hated on Annie Hall because I was like, Star Wars didn't win Best Picture. Like, what the heck is Annie Hall?
Right.
Like as a young person growing up, I was like, that's just unfair. or do the right thing, losing out to Driving Miss Daisy. I know there's a lot of people that get mad at Driving Miss Daisy as a result because that sort of thing happens.
Yep.
And obviously with Shakespeare in Love, it was Saving Private Ryan. Everybody was thinking it was going to be a Saving Private Ryan year. When Shakespeare won, it kind of upset some things.
Yeah. So I think you'll find that more of if people hate a Best Picture movie, it's more because it beat out something that they think deserved it more. It's not necessarily
really partial to it,
movie.
right?
Yeah. And I think we'll be able to see that this month. Like if some of them beat out the ones that I'm like, ooh, this is one I hope for 2021. I'll be like, I don't like this movie even more now.
And I will say I haven't watched the Oscars in about 10 years. I don't watch the show as much as I used to. I was obsessed for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I started to really enjoy it when I gave up on my favorite movies winning.
Yeah.
I started being happier when I noticed that people I liked won an award somehow. So seeing Steven Soderbergh win Best Director for Traffic made me feel good because I felt like he was making great movies and he deserved to have an Oscar.
Right.
Watching the people that I value or their films that I value get awards, even if it wasn't for that movie that I think they deserved it for. That's when I started to appreciate those things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know a lot of people hate on Crash. I do have a small soft spot for that one, but it's not going to make my list. But because I worked for the film festival where that movie made its world premiere, we always felt very partial to it for that reason, and to Paul Haggis, who I still think is a really talented individual. $1 Million Baby and a million other great things. Paul Haggis is very talented as a writer director. Sorry, so we're kind of getting off track here a little bit. Honestly, anime, you know what? I think Bearded and I both mentioned we are very anime light in our knowledge. My area of knowledge for anime is very weak. So it might be a thing where maybe we spend time when I'm on summer vacay and I can actually watch a ton of stuff, just try out. But it's hard. What do you qualify as anime? A lot of people count it series and not just movies. Right. And then you're in a whole other basket. But I do agree. I need to expand my anime knowledge.
Oh, yeah. I'd be down to expand some point for that. So
we could do the Michael and Riley Downright podcast thing that he's been doing lately with some of those guys, where it's like, just get on live and record watching something, and you and I just doing reactions to whatever. We just watch it together.
Yes.
I mean, I'm down. It's just a ton of editing. I don't know that I could handle that, but still impressive. You guys are a riot. This chat is hilarious. Okay, it is basically the longest day. I do agree. Mm-hmm. That's well said, sir. So let's. Are we ready to get into this?
Yeah, I am. I have to still try and even figure out, man, how am I going to...
Yeah, we should mention that. Because they're not in... We don't have these ranked as like favorites. And I'll try to put some of the ones I love the most maybe at the end. But the truth is I did not pick a number 1 and a number 10. It's just kind of all mixed. Mine are just kind of shuffled. And I'll try to do old and new and kind of jump around. I do like Shakespeare in Love. I don't hate on it like some people do. I think it's actually just a lot of fun. But we'll get to that in a bit. Maybe. So can I go first then?
Go first. Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to start with my rule breaker, and we discussed this as a legitimate.
You cannot pick two movies. You can't.
Yes.
You can't put Godfather 2 and 1 together. No.
Suck it.
No, I knew you were going to do this. No,
right here. It's happening.
You can't do it.
It's happening.
No. You son of a gun. Which one is it? Which one? Godfather.
Okay, so we'll have this conversation. It's a wonderful conversation. Yeah, The Godfather. Freaking! If it's not on your list of the best movies that won Best Picture, I don't know who you are at this point. So yes, if I had to pick one, it would be the original. I'll pick Godfather 1, simply because of the incredible hurdles that Francis Ford Coppola had to go through to make this movie. The ridiculous casting bullets he had to dodge. I'm sorry, I love Robert Redford, but what? Who wants to put Robert Redford in this freaking movie? Kill this person. Like, they should not be working in Hollywood anymore. But I love both films equally. I don't know that I could separate them from one another. However, I will say that, this film set a ton of trends, both in Hollywood and, but also in acting. And I think that Francis Ford Coppola might be my favorite filmmaker of all time. He's right there with Hitchcock and John Ford for me. And yeah, this is just a masterpiece. Acting, cinematography, story, screenwriting, adaptation. Like, this was a hugely popular book. To make it into a successful movie, amazing. And launching so many great careers. So I just adore this movie.
Yeah.
So there you go. Fine. I picked one.
You picked one, and you picked the first one.
And number 2 will not be on my list then. I better load number 2. Crap.
Well, gang, we are 1 for 1 because he picked Godfather 1.
Oh!
I had Godfather 1 on my list. I didn't have Godfather 2. And I was like, no, I'm making a statement because I knew you were going to try and pull this crap. I knew you were like, I've got Godfather 2
movies. Yeah, I mean, they're the same. Yeah, I get you.
So I was like, no, I'm going to make him. I'm glad we started off.
Every movie from the 70s, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with a lot of what you said about it, which makes it great. I think 2 is great in and of its own case, but it builds off of what the groundwork that 1 laid down, and that it's hard for me to put 2 over 1 because of those aspects. But yeah, man, the acting and man, Al Pacino.
His journey in these 2 films, but specifically this one, is powerful.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, I'm going to stick with. We got 1 for 1, gang.
Wow. What about music? We didn't mention the music, which is iconic. You hear even like a few notes, and you're like, "Oh, I'm stopping. I'm watching this now. I gotta stop everything I'm doing. I'm watching The Godfather now." Just absolutely beautiful, and then so many powerful moments.
Yeah,
it's the freaking Godfather. I mean, it is what it is. I don't know that we need to argue this with anybody in the chat.
No, and I don't think anyone in the chat really is going to argue it. I don't think they really are.
Not surprised, right? They're not surprised.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much a given. There's a reason those Marlon Brando posters were on every college dorm. Like he's like, I'm the Godfather.
All right, well then, should we move on from this one?
I think we should. Yeah.
Wow. All right, so then I'll go with a more modern movie and probably one of my favorite genres, the Western. I'm going with Unforgiven. I'm a Clint Eastwood fan. I'm a Westerns fan, and as much as I love The Outlaw Josie Wales, which might be my favorite Clint movie, this is just a masterpiece. The cinematography, the act. I mean, look at the faces of the actors list out here. This cast is phenomenal, and a movie that really looks at the impact of violence, and these characters really are pushing some of the tropes of the Western and the genre that Clint Eastwood helped to create. I think it's just an absolutely phenomenal movie. And there's nothing bad to say about it. The music, the subtle guitar strings. And of course the last 15 minutes of this movie are just mind-blowing, just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. This is one of those, and this is what we were talking off camera.
So we're not 2 for 2?
We're not 2 for 2.
Okay. I didn't think you were a Westerns fan, so I thought I was safe.
I'm a casual Western fan.
Is that when they wear comfortable jeans?
Yeah, so I wear sweatpants and a cowboy hat. Keep it cash.
It's casual Cowboy Friday.
So I grew up in a house where my mom was a big Clint Eastwood fan. So this was a movie I saw, which I probably shouldn't have seen as a kid, but I haven't revisited it in a long time. And so I just didn't get back to my rewatch list. And so that's what we were talking off screen of. This is where it could be tough, because I feel like if I rewatched it, there's probably about 4 or 5 movies in here that I feel like I could probably swap out with on my list of I put Unforgiven in over this one or something. If I really took the time to watch all 92 movies, which I wasn't going to do. So no chaos. We're doing our top 10 that we like. There's no rankings of 1 through.
I was just typing it. Sorry. Yeah, these are our favorite films that have won Best Picture, and I don't know his list. He doesn't know mine. So far, we are 1 for 1 on the. I'm sorry, no, 1 for 2. We are 1 for 2 because he didn't have Unforgiven, but we both had The Godfather Part 1.
All right, John.
Are you ready for? Let me get this down. Let me take this down, and I got.
Do you want me to pick? Do you want me to pick one that I think you won't have, or one I think you will have?
Ooh, let's go with one you think I will have.
Okay. So this is one. It's a movie we have talked about on the show before.
Okay.
And I am gonna go. I can't talk about my top 10 without mentioning Silence of the Lambs.
Yes, that is definitely one of my all-time. In my opinion, the best movie to win Best Picture. I might call Silence of the Lambs. But yes, I'm so glad you picked this.
So we're 2 out of 3, gang.
2 out of 3.
Don't get your hopes up because I know my list. This, I would say, I did revisit this again this week. And good golly, it is the music, the performance by Anthony Hopkins is legend. I mean, the creepiness, the just pure. It's a horror movie. It's a crime theological, without really. I know people like, oh, he bit off a guy's face. Like, it really doesn't have a lot of horror elements, from like gore. It's not like a gore horror movie for the most part, where it's the horror because of the psychological thriller that, Anthony Hopkins puts you through. Like, you don't even see the scene, but basically, like, he's like, oh, yeah, this guy just died because he ate his own tongue because he was seen talking to Hannibal Lecter for the past 3 hours after what he did with the Clarice. Like that, like, I'm like, oh man, you don't want to mess with this guy. Right. And again, Jodie Foster early on into fantastic, to be able to be, I don't want to say relatively unknown, but like relatively.
Who are you talking about?
Jodie Foster.
I mean, she'd already, had her Oscar for Taxi Driver.
Yeah. But I feel like for her to go toe to toe with Anthony Hopkins and that's where it's like, because she definitely could bring it. And I think that's what they had to do with casting it. But I would say to the uneducated, most people probably still didn't know. I wouldn't say she was a household name for a lot of people.
No, not. And Hopkins as well. I think he had some smaller British films, and this was a very different kind of role for him. There's Coach Vic in the chat, man. Thanks for coming by. I will say I love this movie, but I also think it's one of those few movies that I've watched when I can feel that it's just perfect. There's nothing I would change. There's nothing. I love every little thought that goes into it. For example, this is one of the few movies that you'll see where actors consistently talk straight into the camera and look directly into the camera. And the impact that has of being unsettling, even when it's Clarice and she gives these amazing monologues about what she's been through in her life, and she was looking directly at us, the audience, the whole time. There's a lot of like rule breaking. This movie breaks a ton of rules. Firstly, it's one of the shortest movies to ever win Best Picture. Usually Best Picture winners are well over 2 hours. This movie's like an hour and a half. It's also one of the only movies that won Best Picture, director, actor, actress, and screenplay. There's only a handful of movies that have ever done that, and this movie does it. It's also one of the only horror movies to win Best Picture. I think it really is a rule-breaking movie. I also think it was way ahead of its time with the strong female lead. I think Jodie and you look at Ripley in the Aliens films. I think these are like the early precursors for some of the comics that we're loving nowadays. I think that she just is phenomenal, and the way they alienate her all through the movie, like there's a shot when she gets into an elevator and it's full of FBI agents and they're all men. The next shot is the doors of the elevator opening and she's getting out and there's nobody else in the elevator. It's like she's survived the survival of the fittest in that what a great little psychological thing to do to the audience that's watching. And she's the one lady among all the men, but then when the elevator opens again later, she's the only one left. She's surpassed all of them.
And when they hit on that stuff frequently throughout the movie too, because there's even that scene where in the funeral parlor, and he kind of was like, "Hey, we need to go talk away from the the female in the room," and then afterwards he's like, "Oh, that really upset you, didn't it?" He's like, I just had to do it for these like small-minded and she's like, and she still was like, "Yeah, that's a bad excuse. Be better." Basically,
that's a bad example. Yeah,
like she's like, "You're just feeding into it." She's like, "Be better." Basically, I was like,
it's a great
watching some of those.
And Clarice,
like, okay, yeah,
she was she was written that way, obviously, in the novel, which is a great book. If you've never read Thomas Harris novel,
I haven't.
I love all the series except after the sign. Hannibal is just a really badly written script. Sorry, Hoarders though thank you for dropping the knowledge that she won for Accused and was nominated. So she'd already had 2 Oscar nominations before this movie.
So I guess to say she was relatively unknown. I would say popularity. Like she wasn't in. I don't know. I wouldn't say those are like very popular movies at that time. Like that for
this
people.
Definitely made her like. Hot.
Got her into the yes.
She was leading movies. She was the star of movies.
Like because then like you throw like I was looking kind of like then she was in Maverick, which was more of your blockbuster style movie. Not saying it's a great movie. Contact in '97, like this
Panic
kind
Room, and then she really blew up after this in a different way.
Yes, because I think I could probably name off a lot of people who have won an Oscar.
Yeah,
that people go, I don't know who that is, or their career really didn't take off after that, or it stayed kind of they were typecast. So
she definitely was growing out of a child actor, into an adult actor with this and with The Accused. I agree, Coach Vic. Red Dragon is the superior novel of all the novels in the series. But I just love Thomas Harris. I think he's a really talented writer. Maverick is awesome. I just watched that with my daughters yesterday.
I haven't watched it in a while, I'd have to see how that holds up. But it's good to know.
Hello, Aggressively Relaxing. Dropping some knowledge about Lord of the Rings winning their Oscar as far as sticking the landing for that. I'm so glad you picked this. Awesome. Yes, this was one of the first movies that I was like, well, this is on the list. Like there was no question. This was there. All right, so we are at 2 of 3.
Yep.
2 out of 3. All right, so we've gone a little bit newer. So let me go back a little older. I'm going to pick one that there's no way that you have on your list.
Okay.
I'm willing to guarantee you don't have this old classic movie. For those that not a big fan of older movies, I'm sorry, but here you go. We have The Best Years of Our Lives.
Yeah, no, not a chance.
Okay. This is amazing. So I really do love this movie. And I saw it in college. I had a film professor talking about war movies and how this was one of the earliest movies to ever discuss PTSD. And it was soldiers returning from World War II. And 3 of them are on a flight home to the same basically hometown or city where they all live. And they get to know each other on the flight. And they all have their different wounds, whether physical or emotional, that they've just achieved. One gentleman has no hands anymore. He has hooks for hands now. Frederick March is the lead actor, and he was I want to say a captain in his unit in Europe. And all of them are reminiscing a little bit about what they experienced, but then of course very excited to see their spouses and be home again. But of course, it all sort of falls apart when they get home, and things are not as good as they hoped it would be. The life that they come back to in some ways is very different, and in a lot of ways they are very different. Very powerful film. I want to say that the lead actor in the movie, sorry, not the lead actor, the actor with the hooks for hands actually lost his hands in the war, and he ended up winning the supporting actor Oscar for his performance. Got to double check Years of Our Lives. But it's a really, really great movie. If you've never heard of it, I totally understand. But it is one of those movies that totally lives up to the hype. Absolutely just mind-blowing, heart-wrenching. So yeah, it won Best Supporting Actor, Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Editing, Best Screenplay, and Best Score. And it was the highest grossing film in the U.S. since Gone with the Wind at the time of its release. Directed by William Wyler and just a really unusual film for its day, which was the book was 1945, the movie was 1946.
Okay.
So there you go. Look, Billy Wilder, very big. He has a huge range as a director. This is William Wyler. The director is William Wyler, which I know that I might have slurred my words a little bit, but this is a great movie. If you want an emotional powerhouse of a movie, I know it's not the most uplifting of topics, but acting on a whole other level, the wives and the husbands, the relationships changing, coming home. It's all really, really well laid out and perfectly done. So
I'll have to check it out sometime.
Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. So, I mean, it's not a movie that people talk about at all anymore. But I don't know why. It should be on the list. It's like the second half of Saving Private Ryan when those characters go home. This is what it would be like. And it's different than the typical, hey, coming home from Vietnam kind of thing. Yeah. This was a very different view of PTSD.
All right.
Yeah, see, there we go. So 2 for 4 now.
Yeah.
Do you want to go with one that you think I didn't pick?
Yeah, I'll throw in one that I feel like I'll probably be, I don't know, more on the loner side of this one.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know. Who knows? I'm gonna go. I freaking love Birdman.
Oh, I remember you was mentioning this. I did not load that
I thought you would have that because I mentioned it already. I'm like, it's gonna make my list.
I should have.
This is a stellar cast. Michael Keaton, and this kind of was what's I think is just so beautifully cast too, because Michael Keaton, is portraying a actor who is now trying to go on Broadway, and he was known, his fame was made by playing a superhero character named Birdman. So it's very on the nose of from what he did with Batman, and he's trying to make his debut out into it. And this play is supposed to kind of like relaunch his career. And I feel like this movie was part of the Michael Keaton relaunch back into, because this came out in 2014. He's in another movie the very next year that gets nominated and wins Best Picture. Like he gets nominated for these awards. Like this started to get back into his revitalization. You have freaking Edward Norton, who
he's great
can
in this.
act like Zach Galifianakis, who actually plays a very good kind of bro agent to him, and not annoying. You have, obviously, as someone who likes The Office, you got Amy Ryan. For those you don't know, that's Holly Flack. You
Emma
have
Stone, Naomi Watts. The women in this are just top tier.
And I can't remember if because I know the director Alejandro. I'm not going to say his last name because I'm going to butcher it.
Don't try.
But he then had multiple movies after this too. That were getting into that nominating. I love how this movie is shot. It follows it. It basically is it feels like it is a one seamless shot the whole time, and they use kind of like the spiritual, existential, kind of like moments to kind of switch out the camera angles a little bit. But if you just to watch it for how it's shot alone is a work of beauty when it comes to like you're walking down the hallway with the people and it goes, the way it turns and then starts to follow someone else down the hallway and how they interact with it's breathtaking to just sit there and watch, and you don't even notice it because of how well it's done. But then if you do, you're watching, you're like, holy cow, because like how the actors turn and the camera move, like that's where I'm like, yep, this is one of those beautifully well done movies. All around, the acting is fantastic, and and I really really dig it. I know I see Horder wouldn't be in the top 10. I get it. That's why I said I feel like I know it wasn't going to be in John's top 10. I know it wasn't going to be in a lot, but I really I made my wife watch this movie because I'm like, this is fantastic. She hated it. So she's like, this is dumb. I don't get it. I don't like it. But I think it's very well done, and it's up there as one of my favorites. Now it definitely is one of those that could also fall into of like, if I rewatched Unforgiven, sure, could it? But I adore how it's shot, so it makes it up there for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a powerhouse movie that sticks with you in a big way. Like I definitely had strong feelings about it, where I was impressed with Alfonso Iñárritu.
There you go. We'll let you try it.
He's a very talented filmmaker, and I think this film really does hit a lot of the emotional moments you want from a movie like this. And he's, for those that don't know, I mean, The Revenant is one of his.
I think that was out the next year, wasn't it?
Was it the next year?
I think so.
Oh, I'm not sure how they compare. Amores Perros, which is a great Spanish film. 21 Grams, Babel, Beautiful. So he's had a bunch of big Oscar-worthy films over his career. Not a lot of movies in my top 10. Okay, well, shouldn't there be 10? I'm just guessing that there's probably 10 in your top 10.
Otherwise, it's not a top 10.
Or
is he saying not a lot of the movies we've talked about are in this top 10?
Ooh, and look, Gore Vidal knows Amores Perros. There he goes. It is a really powerful film. Really, really powerful film. I really do love it. And does have a Pulp Fiction-y structure. Absolutely. Yeah. So if you've missed that one, if you don't mind watching foreign films, big fan.
Nice.
Anything more you want to say here? Sorry.
No, I think I'm good with that one. I got my points in.
Okay. So let's see. I did an old one. You did a modern one. It's perfect. I'll do one right in keeping with what yours is, because you mentioned it, and I'm a huge fan of Spotlight. And yeah, this I might have watched this movie more than most winners of Best Picture, except maybe The Godfather. I think firstly, I love movies about with mysteries and solving mysteries. I really do enjoy that kind of thing. I like a good ensemble, and I love a good true story that's well told. And I think Spotlight is firstly, it's really the only super modern movie on my list, meaning the last like 20 years, maybe 15, more like 15. I just think it's exceptionally well laid out. I like that they don't spend a ton of time on character, but instead they give you just enough little moments to get you to know who these people are. And you see, Rachel McAdams with her mom. You get to see, what's his name? John, is it, I can't remember that. Yeah, of course his name's not the one. He's the only guy not listed on
the one that the lawyer that they're.
No, it's the member of the Spotlight team who lives basically like a block and a half away from one of the priests on the list. They really spend just enough time letting you get to know these guys, and this I really was blown away by it. I think it's really well handled for the topic. They don't spend a ton of time getting into the really hard details of what happened to these kids, but instead focus on the conspiracy, the cover-up, the challenges in legally getting that information out to the public. I think those are the mystery aspects that make this more compelling, and they just give you enough of the tragedy that we know encompasses this huge revelation for the city of Boston, but for the world. And I think it's just beautifully handled, on top of which the culpability factor, I think, is really beautifully done. When you see Michael Keaton confess to the fact that they covered up this story under his watch, that moment is like mind-blowing. And you get to see him basically say, yeah, we had this story years ago and did nothing with it. And it was my fault. I should have been the guy to uncover this and save a lot of kids, but I didn't. My dad is here. My dad says he's a huge fan of the Free Press, and that's probably one of the movies that won Best Picture in the last 20 years. This, for me, beats all of them hands down. Like that, just nothing is on this level of quality filmmaking that's not in your face. That's very subtle, and the performances, of course, Ruffalo, Keaton, McAdams, Liv Schreiber, John Slattery, Stanley Tucci, so many great performances in this.
Yeah, it's a powerhouse. And with that being said, we are.
You picked this one too?
I did.
Hey!
I did. This is a tough one. And some of my movies, I definitely have on my list are ones that are just tough. They deal with tough subjects, and it's not something like I want to always revisit, or it is a very uncomfortable storyline, but I think that's what makes this so much powerful of a movie, of how important it was to say, we have to bring light to it. We have to not, like your dad was saying about the Free Press, and the pain that Michael Keaton, like you said, of dealing with that. I could have prevented possibly more of this in the future, but it's powerful. The acting, I mean, you just look at that list right there, and it's who's who of
the MCU.
Yeah,
it's like the MCU. It's like the entire MCU. If you look at it,
we got Hulk,
it's hilarious.
Vulture.
You've got Doctor Strange's lady.
You've got Sabretooth, who isn't
Sabretooth. John Slattery's Tony Stark's dad.
And what is
Stanley Tucci is the scientist who makes Captain America. Yeah. Dr. Erskine.
And isn't Eric Bana in this movie too?
No, I don't think Eric Bana is, but
not Eric Bana. No,
Billy Crudup, is that his name?
Billy Crudup. That's who I'm thinking of.
Who plays Flash's dad in
Flash's dad? Yeah, Billy Crudup.
Justice League. So yeah, my daughters saw me watching this and they're like, "I know everybody in this, Dad. Why can't I watch it?" Not for kids. Not for kids. So I'm so glad you picked this movie, because I feel like I'm one of the only people who sort of champions this movie and consistently is mentioning to people that I think it's just a great Oscar-winning Best Picture. It was totally worthy for me.
Yeah.
Hey, Fury Road is a great movie. Didn't win Best Picture this year, and I appreciate you being disappointed about that, though. It's a great movie.
I feel like Fury Road, though, was one of those movies where you started to get blockbuster movies at least getting nominated, and that one felt like it had one of the best chances to win. I know Dark Knight was hey, this was where I think you started. That was one of those 2015. You started to see more, and sure, it probably was a little fan service by the Oscars. We'll give them one. It's never gonna win,
right? It's not gonna have a shot.
We'll give them one, but it felt like Fury Road was one that they gave that actually had a legit shot of a blockbuster movie. Because I feel like everyone thought Dark Knight had that shot.
Yeah.
And it didn't. And so I feel like this was the next one. This is it. So, yeah.
All right. So there we got our Michael Keaton movies out of the way.
Are they all out of the way?
I don't know.
Yeah, they're out of the way, gang.
Yeah, I don't know that he was ever nominated in another movie that won Best Picture. Okay. So what do you got for us here?
Okay. So we've gone. All right.
A lot of modern stuff lately.
We have. So do you want me to go mid-modern or my oldest?
I don't know. You do you, brother.
I don't know. That's what I don't know.
We're already 45 minutes into this. Right. Come on.
Let's go with, I'm going to go with, this is one that I feel like you already have the poster loaded up because you feel like it's coming. I'm going to go with, I think it was 2000s. I'm going with Gladiator.
Oh, I do not have that loaded. I did not pick this movie. Sorry.
I figured as much. I know, man, Ridley Scott, Gladiator, Russell Crowe. I know people they have their feelings about Russell Crowe. But rewatching this movie, Joaquin Phoenix.
Oh, yeah.
Holy buckets. That guy is creepy to I'm watching that after watching Joker recently going, oh, dude, this guy is a creepy actor. You've got the little kid from Sixth Senses in this movie. And was it Desmond Hushma? always butcher his name.
Hello, PJ King and No Good Comics and Old Wolf. So you're asking for Richard Harris, or who are we asking for here?
No, Desmond
Jaimon Hunsu.
Jaimon Hunsu. I see. I always mess it up. I butcher it, and I knew I was going to. The score. We've talked about music a little bit, but I think the score is fantastic. One of the more quotable movies like that.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained? I'm Maximus Aurelius, father to a murdered son, husband to a murdered wife. I will have my vengeance in this day or the next. Like, it's so powerful. It's so, even like the little things of like, you can say it's cheesy, but like, man, when Russell Crowe about to get executed right at the beginning, and he's like, oh, the frost makes the blade stick, and then he just hauls off. I'm like, oh.
And he throws that sword all the way down and gets that guy with it.
Yeah. I love the relationship between Russell Crowe and Proximo's character. And this was one of those movies that they really had to deal with. The kid from Sixth Sense. I'm sorry. The kid from Unbreakable. Yeah. I'm sorry. The kid from Unbreakable. I was thinking of Glass, and I was like, what's the movie? So it's Bruce Willis's son in Unbreakable. Sorry about that. Not Sixth Sense.
A lot of people chiming in. They love this pick. Look at that. I'm also proud to say my dad loves Fury Road. So there you go.
Right. But this was where I'm no gore or someone can the actor who played Proximo passed away during the filming of this movie. The
one who runs the arena where he trains
the gladiator fights. Yeah.
Right.
He passed away, and there's this really crazy story about him, that he was having a drink off with some sailors and stuff while they were off shooting and passes out on the floor basically. But this is where they had to do CGI of this guy's character to finish the movie.
Oh wow.
So it was one of those.
I never heard that story. That's cool.
So it was just a super. I really loved Russell Crowe in this. This is where he was there with LA Confidential. This was the movie that catapulted him into, I feel like, everyone's favorite. And I have a soft spot for this. This was my first RA movie I snuck into as a kid. And I lied and told my parents I went and saw Flintstones Viva Rock Vegas. So that plays nostalgia for me too. But I love it. It's great action, great acting, and the music and fight scenes are beautiful.
Yeah, I will say, obviously the Scott brothers, Tony and Ridley, great filmmakers, and this is high on Ridley's list as just a masterpiece of a movie, and a movie that cemented Russell Crowe as a great a great actor. I'm a big fan of Far Side of the World, Master and Commander, an Oscar nominee but not Best Picture winner. This is obviously a throwback to the Ben-Hur days and the Spartacus days, which are two great sword and sandal films that are just epic movies. It's a film that lives up to Ben-Hur and Spartacus, which is really saying
says a lot,
right? That's saying
that says a lot,
So I do. It's a very good pick, and I would say it wonderfully captures the dichotomy of the Oscar winners, because I feel like Best Picture winners fall into two categories: the big epics or the small personal films. And this one right after Spotlight kind of highlights the spectrum that you get when you have these movies. You have those big spectacle movies that are just epic and usually really, really long and have incredible cinematography. And then you have these really poignant small story films like Spotlight. And I think it's a fun gambit.
It is. You have your Return of the King, and then you have your Artist. You have the big,
So good pick. Nice done. So I'm going to pick my biggest epic on this list, and a movie that I adore. And I just showed my daughters not too long ago. Agora heard me talk about it this morning. We're talking about Lawrence of Arabia. I am a big David Lean fan. I think I own 4 or 5 of his movies, because Brief Encounter is a great movie. Of course, Bridge on the River Kwai is a great movie that won Best Picture from him. But I mean, you go David Lean, you kind of got to go Lawrence of Arabia. If I've seen this in the theater. I was not that old, but I have seen it. It's one of those movies that gets re-released into theaters a ton because 70 millimeter prints of this are stunning. And it's just a masterpiece of filmmaking. Specifically, I think it's a movie that really nails the concept of, we don't have to tell you who this guy is. We're going to let his actions speak for him themselves. And you have all these moments where the hero can't even identify himself as a British or an Arab citizen. He's somewhere in between. His heart belongs with one, but his skin, his outer appearance belongs with another culture. And I think it's just a masterfully done performance and film. The way now, of course, you can get on this film for blackface because basically you have a bunch of white British guys playing Arabs, and that was the era. I mean, John Wayne played Genghis Khan or something. I mean, at one point, these things happen.
Yeah,
but it's Alec Guinness, it's Omar Sharif. I mean, you're talking about these incredibly talented actors, and they are not doing parodies. They are definitely trying to do a realistic portrayal. And Claude Rains is in here as well. It is just, I told my girls when we watched it, this is just one of the greatest movies ever made. And on top of which, my girls kept saying, did they really shoot this? Like, they were looking at scenes when they blow up a train and crash it in the desert and it rolls right up to the camera, or when they have thousands of extras riding through the desert, charging one another down with planes dropping bombs from above. I was like, yeah, they didn't use digital effects for any of this stuff. They legit took themselves out in the desert. And they're like, why aren't there any footprints from I'm like, because every time they shot a take, they'd have to come back through and wipe the footprints away in the sand and come back and start that sucker over again.
So crazy.
It's just epic. It's just one of the greatest movies ever made. He doesn't think Lean made a bad film. Yeah, Brief Encounter is beautiful and a great smaller film from him. And then, of course, Bridge on the River Kwai. But I'm a Lawrence of Arabia fan. Sorry. I'm assuming this is not on your list.
You are correct. So this is one of those. This is one that I have not seen, and as a movie buff, I feel like I need to see it, and I haven't. And so I want to. I have no reason I don't. I haven't made it.
I would say wait until a retrospective comes near you, and you can see this in a theater with a 70 millimeter print.
Okay.
Because you get, this is an old style movie. They give you the whole opening 10 minutes is just the musical score on a black screen.
Yeah.
They play the entire theme, the music, to a black screen. Then the intro with the credits occur. Then the movie plays. Then you get an intermission at the halfway point. And some theaters will actually turn the lights on. You can go get new popcorn and go to the restroom and come back. Then they do the music again to a black screen. And then the movie starts the second.
So I need it. So I will, because we have it where like the Ohio Theater, which is one of the big theater houses that does like the musicals and plays that come through, they do a summer movie series, and I feel like this is always up there that they show.
Right.
And so I should for sure. I'll do it that way.
I forgot to mention Hoarder's Hyde mentions that the Best Actor Oscar can sometimes be backwards, and people can win for a movie that came out the previous year. And this is totally true. And it's always been the case. It's not a newer thing. James Stewart won the Oscar because he had lost it the previous year for Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and they gave him a supporting actor nomination or award for The Philadelphia Story, which if you watch those two movies, you're like, why did he win an Oscar for The Philadelphia Story? And it's just kind of the nature of the beast.
It really is. I feel like I feel like Leonardo DiCaprio was always one that should have won a best Oscar for Best Actor at some point. And I'm glad that he did for Revenant, because I'm glad he got his award. But
that's not the movie.
That's not the movie he should have won it for. There's many others where he did a better Best Actor performance. So they definitely have that where it's
And that's what I was kind of hinting at the beginning is I understand people who hate the awards in general, and giving awards for creative endeavors in general is an odd kind of a thing. But I will also say I get enjoyment out of people that I like, actors, actresses, writers, filmmakers, winning Oscars, even if it's not for the film they deserve it for. Just seeing Steven Soderbergh get the Oscar for Traffic, I was like, you know what? I loved Out of Sight, Ocean's 11, Aaron Brockovich. That guy was killing it, making great movies. I don't care what movie he wins it for. You know, I'm just happy that he got an Academy Award because the guy has made great movies. And that's just kind of how I feel about it.
And I think that's how you have to watch it. I mean, I remember feeling that with Leo. Like, I'm glad he won it because he deserved to have an Oscar in his repertoire. I don't think he should have won it for that one. And I'm trying to find out who was in that, but it was like, yeah, like it's interesting how they do that. So, I think he lost out to Eddie Raymond. Or he beat, or no, that was
Eddie Redmayne for
one Theory of Everything the next year. So I think,
it's hard. It's hard. That stuff is very challenging. And but again, if you can enjoy seeing people that you're like, oh yeah, he's a really great writer, I'm glad he's got an Oscar.
Yep.
Then then you can get a little more enjoyment out of it. Like Cameron Crowe is a writer, director that I really love, Jerry Maguire, Say Anything, and seeing him win for Almost Famous, I was like, good. He deserves an Oscar. I'm glad. I love Almost Famous, but like, this is somebody that I'm happy has that trophy on their shelf.
Yeah.
All right. What are we doing here, sir? What do you
so since it was just brought up in the chat, and it kind of it's led into this discussion. I'm going back to the Russell Crowe board, and I'm bringing up Beautiful Mind.
Oh, I did not predict that movie. Holy cow. Go for it.
So Beautiful Mind, story of Jonathan Nash, just a brilliant, super, super brilliant mathematician. And it deals with the schizophrenia. Schizophrenia. That is basically what he is dealing with. And the actors that come alongside it, I think Josh Lucas plays one of the people who is kind of his budding rivalry. Vision is there as his
Paul Bettany. Yep. Ed Harris.
Ed Harris is that. This is one of
Jennifer Connelly. I mean, the cast is just amazing in this.
It's knocked out. This is one of those movies. I remember watching it in theaters, and I didn't know anything about this world. Most kids, I think I was a freshman, sophomore in high school. Sorry to make you guys feel old, but like, remember going to see this movie with my family, and I don't know anything about Jonathan Nash, and I'm like, wait, hold on. What's going on? Wait, are they real? Like, and just how he has to process this and what he goes through to be as smart as he is and how that conflicts with it. Like this, I do agree with what Hoarder said. Like this, as much as I adore Gladiator, I think Russell Crowe should have won for this one more than he did for Gladiator, because the acting for me for Russell Crowe in this is so on point. And it's one of those movies, like I love to go back and watch it now knowing what happens, because I'm like, oh, how did I miss that it wasn't, how did I miss that? Like, it's pretty obviously that his roommate is off a lot of the times.
I love it. I love drop your lists. Let us know, man. You might hit on some of the ones because we still got a bunch of movies left. Sorry.
Yeah. So again, the score for this really so well done. The acting is top notch. It tugs on my heartstrings. The pen scene.
Yeah.
Like it's just is a powerful movie. So
yeah, and I'm a big fan of Ron Howard as a filmmaker too. Apollo 13, and I mean Ron Howard is underappreciated, I think, a lot of times, and it was nice to see him be awarded for his hard work as a filmmaker, because he's made so many. I mean, his film, I would say, obviously, Apollo 13 for me is a bigger, better film, but it did not win Best Picture, and this is the one that he did win for, and it's just a really well handled film. They did a really good job with it,
and it's one that I enjoy. Like Russell Crowe's little like quick hits to people are hilarious. Like his just little like smart out comments, and I'm like, it's witty. humor in it is fantastic. And like how he's like, you know, trying to pick up a girl at the bar. He's like, I don't know the equation I have to say to get you to sleep with me. And she just smacks him like, what do you know, or he talks about like the play of like, no one goes for the hot blonde. We all go for her friends. And because like, just like how they portrayed that kind of process of the mind, I thought it was cool.
Absolutely.
I thought really well done. So
awesome. So you got the Russell Crowe. You filled the Russell Crowe.
I did.
I appreciate it. So I've got a couple. So I got 2 moderns and 2 classics left.
Okay.
So 2 that are during my lifetime and 2 that are beforehand.
Okay.
I will say I'm getting into some of the cheesier picks, the ones that I'm sentimental about and they mean something to me. And I'm going to start off with one that I know some people just don't love it, but I am a big Kevin Costner fan, and I freaking love Dances with Wolves. I watched this movie a ton, and the music. I mean, I can hear 5 notes of this music and just be done for the day. Like I'm just done. I like the acting across the board, and this is easily one of the best photographed Best Picture winners. I mean, it's like the whole movie's shot at sunset. The thing just looks stunning. The attention to detail in the production quality and in every layer, like the detail is just phenomenal. Is the story ridiculous? Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of realism going here as far as the journey that John Dunbar goes through. But the attention to detail on how a tribe survives. And I think that this is a very early time to have American filmmakers portray Native Americans as more than just savages. And I think it's a big film in that regard. Graham Greene is freaking amazing. The guy is just an absolute talent. And he is so great in this movie as Kicking Bird. I'm so glad I found a poster that puts him like prominently above Kevin like this. So this movie just holds a big place for me. I'm a big fan of his, of Costner's. This is his vanity movie, you know, but it's more than that. And the reason I picked this movie over a different actor director's movie is because of his passion for this, that he bought this book. He held this onto this book. He gave the screenwriter lived in Kevin Costner's house in Los Angeles, trying to turn it into a screenplay for years. Then when this movie went almost double over budget, Kevin paid for the movie to continue to be shot and made the way he wanted it to. There is a level of dedication for me that this movie has that, Kevin Costner, I know that he made The Postman, but we can all forget that. And
can we though?
I can, because I see this movie and Bull Durham enough that there's nothing else that really matters for me. So I'm a big fan. Thank you, Todd Christian. I know the Goodfella fans are not going to be happy about this pick. The Scorsese fans will be upset. And I understand that. I totally understand that.
But if you watch this show, everyone knows you don't like Scorsese.
I'm not a big Scorsese fan, so there you go. I'm a huge Kevin Costner fan, though, so there you go.
This is one that I have not had a chance to see.
You've never even seen it one time?
My mom adores this movie. I'm
shocked.
I watched. I remember watching more. My mom watched more of Last of Mohicans than like Dancing with the Wolves.
Great movie too. Absolutely.
So, I never saw this one. Or if I did, I haven't seen it in its entirety in a long time, so I couldn't. But so it's on my list of movies I need to see. So
I will also say there is a director's cut that is longer, but also
would you say release the Costner cut?
It has been released. You can buy it on DVD and Blu-ray. And I think it's an absolute masterpiece that adds a ton to the movie. But the movie was already 2.5 hours. So now you're talking about like a little over 3. I just think it's a really well handled movie. And I didn't even talk about the buffalo hunting scene, which was a huge deal. They really hunted or pretended to hunt buffalo, and Costner really rode a horse with a stampeding herd of buffalo. And he was supposed to take breaks and have a stunt actor ride in, but they only had a few shots of time. They were only allowed to do it a few times. So every time he fell off his horse or had a problem with his horse, he'd jump off, take the stuntman's horse, and ride back in and do it again. So good. TJ. I love our audience. The fact that you know and our audience knows that he's the dead body in The Big Chill and has no scenes in that movie, that's what makes this joke funny for an anti-Kevin Costner fan.
Yeah.
So I appreciate it. So look, Amadeus, Rain Man, Driving Miss Daisy, Dances with Wolves, Unforgiven, Schindler's List, Forrest Gump, Cuckoo's Nest, Patton, Casablanca. Look at that list. Killing it.
And all those movies were,
I kind of did too.
We're looking at, I liked Waterworld. I'm not going to lie.
Waterworld's a lot of fun.
It is.
Yeah.
There's a reason it still is a stunt show in, I think, Universal.
Right.
So, man, that's a good list.
Dances with Wolves was a very risky film to make because Westerns weren't popular. It had a huge focus on Native Americans, which meant a ton of no-name actors. This movie was like nobody wanted to make it, which is, again, why Costner had to put up millions of his own dollars and why he's living happy high on the hog, because this movie made a ton of money and he basically owned almost the entire movie outright. It was very, very, very ballsy choice. And again, his friend wrote the book. He loved the book. He bought the book. He paid for his friend to write the script and live in his freaking house. And then they went out and shot this movie his way, and he ponied up the money to pay for the second half. So for me, it just narrowed. This was my 10th pick, and it just narrowly beat out a different movie. So there you go. Sorry.
I'll be curious to hear that. So
I don't think the other film's going to come up tonight, but I can mention that at the end if you want.
Well, I will say this. I'm looking at Hoarder's Hyde's pick, since Hoarder's in the chat right now.
Yeah. He had a great list. It was a solid list.
There's a couple that almost made my list. There's only one, though, that we haven't talked about that has made my list.
Let's see it. Oh, sorry.
It's Cuckoo.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Ooh,
it
did not make my list.
So this is, Best Picture, it won Best Actor and Best Actress or Best Supporting Actress.
Best Actress. This is one of the two other movies that
Best Director
that achieved the same thing as Silence of the Lambs.
Yep. A lot of my picks, I think, not a lot, but one of the things that gets me for these, it's not a movie I rewatch a lot. But because it's a difficult storyline to deal with.
It's a powerful one.
It's powerful, but it hits you in the gut for that one. It's another who's who. I kid you not, I was rewatching it this week and I was like, this character looks so familiar and unique. I'm like, I wonder what else I've seen him in. It was freaking Danny DeVito.
Danny DeVito, yeah. Danny DeVito.
I'm just so used to, like,
you didn't know that was Danny DeVito. What about Christopher Lloyd? Did you see?
I didn't. Christopher Lloyd's pretty noticeable. It's Christopher Lloyd. To me, though, I'm so used to Danny DeVito in just a completely different style role and just different look with no hair. And I was like, he looks so oddly, uniquely familiar. I know I've seen him and stuff. I'm looking and I'm like, holy cow. But Jack's performance in this, the dealing with, the mental health issues of dealing with patients and dealing how treatment is used, and this idea of, Jax goes in as kind of like he really shouldn't be in this facility at all. And then through the process of growing and being with these people, like he becomes kind of like a mentor to these people in this facility, but through his actions, because of how he cares for them in this midst, because of how they've been mistreated in this institution, he then essentially gets regulated to that they fry his bro. Like, I mean, it's just like, it's such a deep and powerful movie. Like, it's tough to watch. And what is it? Louise Fletcher.
Yep.
Who plays Nurse Ratchet. It is so powerful for her. That it just is one of those movies that, like you said, the screenplay, the storyline for it, it's just a powerful movie. I knew this was going to be one that people kind of didn't like for PJ's reasoning alone.
And we discussed this at the beginning, PJ, this idea that sometimes we are so attached to a movie that lost that we kind of start shaming the movie that won. I totally understand that feeling. But do you remember, Greg, when we were talking about Kirk Douglas and this movie came up? Because I mentioned that Kirk played this on Broadway. This was a Broadway play first, and loved it and bought the rights to the movie so that he could make the movie version of this. And he couldn't. Kirk spent his whole career trying to get this made, couldn't do it, and then got too old for the part, and it stuck in a drawer until his son Michael bought it from him and produced this movie and won Best Picture with it. And at the Academy Awards basically said, "Thanks, Dad." And Kirk had to eat the crow of that, basically, watching his son achieve greatness for the play and the movie he wanted to make. That story almost makes this movie better for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And just the different unique characters. Like, yeah, I mean, it's a murderer's row of movies that he did in there.
Yeah,
and
he had a great decade.
So, but yeah, I really love the diversity of the characters that it's very a movie with ensemble casting, and like I felt like they just portrayed them very well. The characters did a very unique, and that's a great movie. So
yeah, it's an absolutely phenomenal movie. A hard one to watch, but I mean, it was in my top 15. Absolutely in my top 15.
Yeah,
it just got wheedled out by some of these others that are a little more sentimental for me. But yeah, absolutely great pick. And there's my dad. Kudos to him. One of the best.
Yeah, and again,
a movie I could watch. Not a movie you could watch more than once, but definitely a great one.
There's a handful of those that, because of that, they're hard to watch because of the storylines. And there's probably some of them that didn't make it into my list because of that.
Right.
So I get it.
I'm going to flip the script on us then here for my next pick and go with an older movie, but movie that I could rewatch and rewatch without any challenges. I'm talking about The Sting with Paul Newman and Robert Redford. I freaking love this movie. My daughters love this movie. We can watch this movie at any point, at any moment in the movie, just jump right in. Come on, Redford and Newman. Like, this movie, I even like it more than Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which is an amazing movie. But this movie, I like the entirety of the story better. Whereas there's parts of Butch Cassidy that I think lag a little bit and are a little weaker for me. There's not a single catch your breath moment in this movie. It's funny. It's creative. The twists hold up. Like, my daughters were like, "No way. What?" Like, this movie holds up remarkably well. And it is just an absolute kick in the pants. Fun. Just a fun, great movie. And of course, George Roy Hill, who did the Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, did this movie as well. It's just, again, I would put this way up there as one of the best movies to win Best Picture because it is so great. It is just the music, the costumes, the production design, and of course, beyond the big three listed on the poster here, the ensemble, right? James Earl Jones's brother as the gentleman who gets killed at the beginning of the movie, and later they have to like sort of band together to get vengeance. The Sting is an absolutely great movie that holds up all these years later.
It is so funny that you put this movie right when you did, because One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest knocked the Sting off my list.
Understandably, this was probably number 8 or 9 right there.
Yep, it's up there for all the reasons that you said. I know you really wish Robert Redford would have gotten his chance to be in The Godfather, but this.
I mean, we can all hope. We could imagine how great that movie would be.
I just really wish Al Pacino was in Robert Redford's role here, and it would have
right. That's the connection we wanted.
So yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. It definitely, like you said, everything about it, the cast, the twists hold up. You're like, whoa,
yeah.
So
many lies, people playing on top of each other. Yeah, really great. And my dad, I know, is a big fan of this because we are big Redford and Newman fans.
And how can you not be a fan of Newman?
honestly, they are both just so top notch and have had such an impact on the history of movies. My dad would, I mean, let's be honest, this would get bumped for a lot of great movies from both of these guys. But my dad and I probably could talk about Nobody's Fool with Paul Newman for weeks. Like it's just a movie that we share a ton of love for. But yeah, this movie's fun. It's funny. It's entertaining. It's got great twists. And again, the music, my dad mentioned it. I mentioned it. The music, they do a great job with the piano music all the way through. And the little transition drawings, it's so really good. John, I think your daughters would make great movie reviewers of old films like Siskel and Ebert. Ooh, my channel going in yet another direction. So yeah, The Sting.
John and I are just gonna leave comic book channels and just do movie channels.
Hey, if my audience comes with me, the 11 people watching right now are my core people. They are my people all the way to the end.
Yep.
So I've got one modern and one classic left. What are you down to, Mr.
Okay, I have. Let me pull it up my list here. I have 2 modern and a mid-modern.
You have 3 movies left because you went after me. I went first.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So you said 2 moderns and a mid-modern?
Yep.
Oh, then we might not agree on any of the ones that are left.
I think we're stuck at 3.
4.
I think we had Godfather, Silence of the Lambs, and Spotlight, which I would not
have predicted Spotlight. That's so awesome.
I would not have. I felt like I could have because I felt like you with your journalism after like our Kirk Douglas of what Ace in the Hole and some of those other comments. But yeah.
Okay. All right. So then let's do your mid-modern because let's do one of your moderns because I have no real full moderns left.
Okay. Well, here I'll do one. It's a modern that I know you watched recently, so we can talk about it. And this goes for me from the best actor that didn't actually win for it, but I'm putting up 12 Years a Slave.
Which I've just watched for the very first time in the last few weeks.
So I know you had just watched it. I didn't think it was going to make your list, but I actually, again, it's one of those movies. It's tough. It is so freaking tough to watch. But it is so powerful. The true story aspect of it, but Michael Fassbender, his performances in this movie it's powerful. I mean, you look at that cast too. Because Paul Dano has been wasn't he nominated for stuff in
for
There Will Be
Blood, yeah.
It just is
Giamatti's
in it. And I butcher the main character's name.
Chiwetel Ejiofor.
There you go.
I fell in love with Chiwetel Ejiofor when I saw him in the Firefly movie adaptation Serenity. Mm-hmm. I was like, this guy's freaking cool. And then, of course, he's in Inside Man, and he gets in all these other great movies. And then, of course, he's just perfect here.
Yeah. The idea of he was a free man that then gets tricked into and gets sold into slavery. Like he was this like world-class, like violinist. I'm trying to remember.
He was a violinist, but I don't think he was a world-class one.
Well,
I thought he had another way of making a living.
Okay, I thought he was a not well-known, but like a somewhat
in the community, like people would ask him to perform. But I don't think that was his occupation. But yeah,
it's just is one of those. It's a tough look back at the history of America, where you go, dang, this. But it's those stories that I think need to be told to further progress, and like it's a powerful movie. Again, it's not one that I don't sit there and go, hey man, let's sit down and watch 12 Years a Slave.
Let's cuddle up. Yeah.
Like but it's a powerful movie that I'm glad that you hadn't seen it, that you got to see it. I have not.
Or was asking if you've seen his other films.
I have not.
Because he also did, was it Hunger? About Fassbender in prison. An Irish prisoner going on a hunger strike for the free. He was an IRA prisoner and going on a hunger strike, which I heard was great as well. I've seen Shame. That's a tough movie to watch too. So yeah, I mean, I will say I'm so glad we're doing this show, because I don't think I would have taken the time to watch 12 Years a Slave independently without this.
Yeah.
It's just a movie that I knew I would enjoy as far as the quality of cinematography, filmmaking, production design, acting, story, but I didn't want to have to deal with it. Like you don't want to face it. It's like, movies like Schindler's List fall into this category of powerful movies that need to be seen and deserve to be seen, but are so hard to watch. And this is the fact that this is a true story that I didn't learn about until I became a full adult is a shame. It's just an absolute shame. Everyone should know this story, just like Madam C.J. Walker. People should know her story. I feel like there are elements of our history that get skipped so that we can learn about George Washington and the cherry tree, which didn't really happen. I feel like we need a balanced approach to history, and this is me as a teacher. We certainly need to know about our founding fathers and how valuable that is, but to skip stories like this, to skip stories like Harriet Tubman. Like, I didn't learn about Harriet Tubman in school. I don't know about other people, but she is one of the most remarkable people.
We did. I will say we did in the Midwest, but probably more so because there's a lot of locations, throughout Ohio that like
Underground Railroad
that are like, this was a part of the Underground Railroad. Sure. And so you can do a lot more stops. So I feel like it was in history a little bit more because of the area that we were in.
Sorry. Thank you, PJ, for correcting me. So like I just feel like the fact that we finally have a movie of this amazing catastrophe, I guess, is the best way to describe it, because of how there was zero justice brought at any point in history for this gentleman, and who knows, and there are the countless number of people that went through similar experiences. Right. But yeah, like you mentioned, the cast. The sequence when his friend, the female character, gets whipped is one of the most brutal sequences, and you are just if you're not brought to tears by that, it's kind of like the moment when Denzel gets whipped in Glory, and if you're not weeping in that moment and that one tear rolls down Denzel's face, like I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah.
So great pick. And I get it. I had only seen it for the first time, so I couldn't bring myself to put it on the 10 for me, but I'm glad
it plays into that, newness too. And again, being such a tough, so I'm glad I at least have it there. So it was talked about, and I'm glad that you saw it.
Yeah. And I took the time to watch a few films that I had kind of missed, and I still didn't get around to On the Waterfront. So those of you Brando fans, I did not get around to watching.
So that's one that's on my list to watch. And
it's not streaming anywhere, so I wasn't ready to pay for it, and I was trying to catch up on other stuff, and it just didn't.
So that's one I felt like it would make it, but
that's the top of my list of best picture winners that I've never seen.
Yeah,
that's number one. Now that I've seen 12 Years a Slave. All right, so I'm gonna go modern and save the classic.
Okay,
but it's probably a mid-modern. I was probably about 10 or 11. I have a big sentimental spot for Rain Man.
Okay,
I like Tom Cruise. I will say, just like I like Kevin Costner, I like Tom Cruise. I have zero. I mean, I don't want to have him tell me about Scientology, but I think this might be my favorite Tom Cruise performance. He is an asshole in this movie. He is just an absolute jerk. And watching his evolution is what makes this movie work. Everybody talks about how great Dustin is in this movie, and of course, he is phenomenal. But for me, he doesn't do what Tom Cruise does in this movie, and this movie works because of Tom. And I could just watch his evolution on repeat. I just absolutely think, like Todd Christian is saying, his role has a bigger challenge to make an audience deal with how horrible he is. There are so many moments at the beginning of this movie where you're like, wow, this guy is awful. And then you get to that moment in the bathroom when he's with his brother, and his brother is brushing his teeth, and his brother says, "Yeah, haha, funny joke, funny Rain Man," and he says, "Rain Man, like, what did you say?" And he makes his brother spit his. He's like, "You're the Rain Man, like you're Rain Man." He realizes that all along he's had this like imaginary friend in his head that wasn't imaginary. And that moment is like so powerful. And then, of course, he turns the bath water on, and his brother has a reaction to seeing Charlie at the bathtub with the hot water. I mean, it is just that whole 10-minute scene is heart-wrenching and is the heartbeat for the entire movie. And I just get weepy every time I watch it. And then, of course, you get to the end when he's got to give him up. And it's just beautifully handled. Valeria Golino, who anyone who only thinks that she can act in Hot Shots needs to watch this movie, because she's so amazing in this movie. And the elevator scene with her and Raymond is just phenomenal, and she's just perfect in this movie. But it's we talked about big epics like Lawrence of Arabia, and then you get this tiny little road trip movie about two brothers, and it's just it's really, really well done. Yes, when Susanna kisses Raymond in the elevator, I love later when he's like, you kissed Susanna? He's like, what was it like? It was wet. It was very, very wet. I love it. I love all of it. So this movie, I could watch this movie every year, and I probably have. It's just a great movie for me.
Yeah, I don't have the affection for it as much as you, but it's a good movie. Like I'm not in the camp of like, oh, it's a horrible movie or anything. I think all the points that you said are up there. So
I know it gets some dings for being cheesy, and Tom Cruise. Some people just absolutely cannot handle him, and I totally respect that. I totally understand that. But I'm not in that boat. I own a ton of his movies, and I watch a ton of his movies. I'm very entertained by his performances. And there it is, Tom Cruise. PJ King likes Tom Cruise a lot. Born on the 4th of July, obviously. What a powerful movie. So yeah, there you go. Rain Man is right there with, like I said, my last two modern picks, Dances with Wolves and this, are very sentimental, and some people love them and some people just hate them. And I understand.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Also, I really
classic left.
I like Hoarder's idea of the best runners up that didn't win, that should have, like, that'd be a fun road to go down some point.
The movies that were nominated but lost.
Yeah.
That's gonna take a lot more research.
That would take a lot of research, but man, I'm sure there's a list up there that I'd like, oh yeah, that'd be I'd like to see that.
Right.
Because there was a list in this that was like all the best picture movies, and then it was listed of which one should have won. Right. And so that probably is a good one to look at, because it had Godfather should have won, but it had some switched.
Okay, so now here we are. You've got two left.
Yeah.
I've got one left. Mine is a classic, which means we're not going to agree on the last two. I picked two posters before we started the show.
Okay.
One of them's a modern, and one of them's a mid-modern.
Okay.
So it's possible my two picks are correct, but we shall see.
Just go ahead, put up your modern pick.
My modern pick?
Poster that you have for me.
For you.
Okay. No.
Oh, okay, fine.
No.
I thought I had that one picked. Okay. Modern movie is?
It's so funny because I was like, I'm going to save my more like, no, these are probably controversial or not as I'm like, I don't like to put these movies on because they're hard to watch. Or so mine anyways, I really, really, really liked Slumdog Millionaire. I went back and then read the book after watching the movie. The soundtrack to this movie is fantastic. I love the storytelling. I know there are people that don't like this movie. I thought of it deals with super hard, tough issues again, as he's like being questioned of like, how do you know this? You're cheating. And he's like, listen, I wish I didn't know the answers to this. I wish I didn't know the answer to what the God statue has in his hand. I know this because I saw this other religion come over and kill my mom for what she believed, like punch you in the gut, or, the stuff that him and his brother and the young girl that Jamal has a relationship with, I think it's like Letitia, something, like I forget her name, but like it just is a powerful story from that aspect. I think is it Dev Patel?
Dev Patel. Mm-hmm.
I think he does a fantastic job in this, as he was unknown to me at this time, and then has gone on to play some really great roles. And I love the storytelling of it. I love how it was shot. The filmmaking, I think, of this is really well done.
Danny Boyle.
I was going to say, I know
that's somebody. That's a great example of somebody that I appreciate and love. Danny Boyle, the filmmaker, and I was just happy to see him winning Oscars.
Yep.
Like I don't love this film on the same level you do, but I was just like cheering for Danny because he's a really talented person.
Yep. So, and this also plays into it. This was probably around the time when I really was getting into Oscar, like I was a single guy for 10 years after college. So like the month of like February and March, I would go to the movie theater like 4 times a week and after work, and just like, I'm going to try and watch all the Oscar nominated movies. I'd pay like $4 and just sit there and like, and try to then pick who would win them all. And so like this was definitely in that highlight of that time of watching it for sure. So there has those moments too.
Right.
But yeah, Danny Boyle, fantastic in this. And
I mean, yeah, if you guys haven't heard of Danny Boyle, I mean, Trainspotting is probably the movie he's still most known for. But
Yep.
I saw Shallow Grave, which is a great small indie film he did with Ewan McGregor. That's like, it's probably the greatest Hitchcock movie that Hitchcock never made. Like, great movie. But of course, he did the Steve Jobs movie. He did 127 Hours. He did 28 Days Later. And he just a couple years ago did Yesterday, the movie about the Beatles music.
I still need to see that.
It's a freaking amazing movie. Oh my gosh, Yesterday is great. So yeah, Danny Boyle is a phenomenal filmmaker. So I'm glad that he won, and he has an Oscar or several Oscars at his house for this, because that's great.
Yeah. So,
all right. Well, I did not predict that, so I'm still hopeful that my final pick is going to be correct.
I don't think
Based
it will
on
be.
what I know of you, that's how I picked this last one. But hey,
Yeah, I know what
really,
I will pick what I think you're going to pick, and I don't think it'll be it.
So I've got one classic left.
Okay.
Do you have a guess what it's going to be? One movie left. I'm actually I'm honestly shocked and ashamed that you don't have this movie on your list, but whatever.
So I don't know, because you're not like you don't go your classic, like, I don't know. I feel like
I've had a few classics like
you have, but I feel like you're more of like
this.
you don't go you aren't one to like, I like Casablanca because it's Casablanca and like everyone likes it. So that's why like
it's Casablanca. I mean, come on.
But that's where I felt like you have those comments sometimes where like, I know you guys are gonna hate me, but I really didn't like this and it doesn't hold up. But
this
because like you did that with the Italian Job, I get it's a completely different movie, but
yeah, that's fair.
So that's where I was going with that. So.
I have a soft spot for this movie, mostly because Ingrid Bergman is amazing and smoking hot and just absolutely phenomenal in this movie. And Claude Rains is hilarious in this. I mean, this movie is eminently quotable. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, there's so many. I mean, the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I mean, so many great lines. I'm shocked to find out there's gambling going on in this establishment. I mean, there's so many great moments. This is an absolutely great, perfect movie. There's just no and the ridiculous story of how hard this movie was to make and how like slapped together this movie was is shocking. They're my dad's favorite movie of all time. Boom. This movie is just a masterpiece, and so many layers of great, and the twists, and the fact that it doesn't end with a happy ending at that era, which is shocking. I do really just adore this movie. It is really well handled, and yeah, it's Humphrey Bogart's masterpiece, even though he didn't really like the movie and want to be in it. It's just a great movie, and I love movies about regret. I love movies about missed opportunities and looking back. And that's the whole point of this movie, is their failed romance. You know, I think you could argue that English Patient takes a ton from this movie, and the things that work best in English Patient are basically just this movie stretched out into a longer form. And I love this movie. It's just I'm excited to show this to my daughters in the next week or so.
Oh,
have you seen this movie?
I have.
Okay, good.
And again, it's up there. I do fall into that trap though sometimes of it's the older movie for me is harder to get into sometimes of so
Ooh, Lady Fantastic blowing my mind.
Mind blown right now. So but yeah, what you said makes sense perfectly. So yeah.
You're like, I don't want to say anything more about it because I don't want people to be mad that I didn't pick this movie. I mean, honestly, for me, Godfather, Casablanca, Silence of the Lambs, like these were guaranteed locks for me. Like there was no question these movies would be there. I would even argue Spotlight was like a guaranteed lock for me, which is shocking because that movie is like not on a lot of people's lists, but like
no, so which is why I know it was so funny that you're like, oh, I made your list. Yes,
I'm so happy about that. Honestly,
I know
that's the highlight of the night for me. All right, so can I show you the movie that I thought?
I think you're gonna think I was gonna say Rocky.
Yes, that's what I thought.
Yeah,
is it?
No.
Oh, I mean, it's a great movie, and I do need to rewatch it. It's been a hot decade probably since I've rewatched Rocky.
Again, a movie where I'm like, I rewatched it this week, and as I'm watching, I go, I think I'm going to remove it from my list. I'm like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to keep it in there. It doesn't. There are aspects of it that don't age well for me.
Okay.
But it came out. Let's say this. Let's try and guess. It came out. Because of recent events, it should affect it more than it probably should for me.
Driving Miss Daisy?
No.
Okay.
So it's really fitting because of you have Casablanca, and it's really fitting because Lady Fantastic, her comment.
American Beauty. Okay.
Yeah. I really, really, I love the story of this, of the arc that Kevin Spacey's character, again, take out recent events, take even parts of the storyline where it's super cringeworthy of like, this is uncomfortable for me. This is hey, Comic Burrito. Like it's the story, the arc. I love a good character arc of like where he was just this like down and out guy who just was, nothing. He felt like he was just in a ho hum, and then he's like, "Wow!" Like he gets his world opened up.
I'm just excited to be next to a belly button for the last few minutes of this show.
Kevin Spacey shows how phenomenal of an actor he is. And the story arc with the neighbors, I think it's Wes Bentley, the son of
Wes Bentley's the son, and then Chris Cooper's the dad.
Chris Cooper's the dad. Thora Birch, I think does a really good job as well in this movie. That doesn't, Annette Bening, like the relationship between Kevin Spacey and Annette Bening, like
I'm just gonna be happy. So yet again, a movie that has a person in it that I want to have an Oscar or to be like worthy of an Oscar, and Scott Bakula, man, Scott Bakula's in this freaking movie.
Oh yeah, he plays one of the Peter
neighbors.
They're both the same name. I forget what it, but yeah. the guy.
Scott Bakula is in a movie that won Best Picture, so I'm not
Yeah.
happy about that.
But like, you know, it in 1999, it's dealing with, you know, the situations with, you know, maybe Kevin Spacey didn't act as much as, you know, the story arc now of like, you know, how he has attracted to his daughter's friend in this movie. It deals with uncomfortable storylines, but it's such a well-written movie from that. And the portrayals in this, Chris Cooper is horribly brilliantly well played in this, of like, man, he was a person you can't stand, but man, Allison Janney, because she plays the wife of Chris Cooper, who basically is just a comatose mom throughout the time, and like the scenes with her and Wes, you know, as he's just like, get out, like I'm leaving, like, and you know, like this, it just is a powerful. But even like the dealing with I forget the actress who plays the friend of Thora Birch.
Oh man, Mina Suvari.
Yes. So like her portrayal of, you know, as they talk about what's true beauty, and you know, and they kind of had this confrontation in the bedroom, like, no, you actually are just ugly because like you hang out with other people to make yourself like feel better and more beautiful. Like, it just is a super well done. And I really loved Kevin Spacey's arc throughout this. Like,
Of course.
It's the reverse of like we talked about Falling Down. It almost is like the reverse of Falling Down, of like where Falling Down is like everything's going wrong. You're like, how farther into a descent you can go. Where Kevin Spacey, like, everything's going wrong. He's like, I'm gonna flip it on the script. I'm gonna blackmail my company into giving me like severance, and I'm just gonna do my life. And my best summers were working at a drive-thru. He's like, I don't want a manager job. I just want to I want the least amount of responsibility possible, but I want to have that feel like. And then Peter Gallagher,
Peter Gallagher,
who plays the other, who I have an affection for because of the OC.
Yeah, and I have a Scott Bakula thing from Quantum Leap.
So like Sandy Cohen from the OC is in a movie that won a Best Picture. So.
Right. So this is a movie that gets a ton of grief for winning Best Picture. A lot of people consider it, along with Shakespeare in Love, like a movie that doesn't deserve it. And I disagree. And I will say this would be in my top 20. So it's nice. You know, I am a huge Alan Ball fan, because anybody who watches my channel knows that I have the entire 6 Feet Under box set. Like I watched that show and I rewatched that show, and I love Alan Ball's dark sense of humor, and he has this huge bleeding heart for his characters and sympathy for everybody, even if they're going through something and not handling it as well as Chris Cooper does, or they're as kind and caring as you know, I think Thora Birch's character is. I think she's got this sweet nature, and she's just being lost in all of this other stuff because she doesn't look like Mina Suvari or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think, this is a great movie and underrated. Again, we talked about giant epics versus small little sentimental. So this is a great example of like a slice of life movie. I mean, it's wonderfully narrated by a dead character who's basically recounting the beauty that he's missing. And I think the movie, you know, even the ridiculous plastic bag video montage is handled so beautifully by Sam Mendes, who is a hugely talented filmmaker. Mm-hmm. I mean, we talked about Road to Perdition last month, and Sam Mendes is a top-notch filmmaker who has a beautiful sense of like the frame of a film and can capture things that just stand the test of time on film, but also really does have a sensitive feeling for his characters and is able to map their stories really, really well, whether it's Paul Newman's tragic like failure as a parent to both his actual son or his real son or his adopted son, if you will, in Road to Perdition. Or you watching Chris Cooper's tragic failure as a father and a lover in American Beauty.
Yeah.
I think yes, Sam Mendes captures all of that perfectly.
He does. So
he may be a despicable human being, but he is a hell of an actor, and that's a great list of movies.
I mean, and that's the truth. Like, because even in the TV show that they replaced him with, basically
House of Cards.
Yeah, House of Cards. Fantastic. Like, the guy can act. The guy might be a piece of crap in real life, but that's where it's one of those, how much it's tough. But
yeah. I mean, I went that way with Tom Cruise. I was like, some people really feel pretty strongly about Tom Cruise. And I will say the movie that I didn't pick when I went with Dances with Wolves, Braveheart was right there. And I'm a big Mel Gibson Braveheart fan, and I understand how people feel about Mel. And that movie just lost out because of how much of Kevin Costner is on screen, his heart, his passion, his movie. Versus, I know that Mel had a bunch of other people paying to make that movie versus Kevin paying for it himself.
Yeah.
That was the movie that I left out.
I'm surprised.
Braveheart was my 11.
I'm surprised that didn't get brought up in the chat. I thought we were going to get one Bassett because I was like, I didn't think you would put it, and it didn't make my list. I have a stronger love for The Patriot than I do for Braveheart, and I know that's going to be a hot take.
That is a hot take, just because I think the screenplay is so much poorer because it's by those guys that did, Independence Day, and the little daughter who doesn't talk but runs up to dad and says, "Don't go." I mean, it's a weepy moment, but it's just some of that movie I can't watch because it's so ridiculous.
It's because of the era I watched it in. Like,
sure, of course,
it was more geared. It was an R-rated movie that was geared towards like a younger. I feel like a younger culture than Braveheart was.
I think it was geared towards Americana versus Braveheart, which is Britain humor or Britain history and Scottish history and lore. And I think my family and my wife's family have more of a connection to that.
Yeah.
And I think it was a part of history that's not told much versus Patriot, which I feel like the American Revolution. I got that history. I never knew the story of the elements of Braveheart, so I thought that was pretty amazing. Love Paul Giamatti and love the John Adams miniseries. Great series. Okay,
we've talked about Paul Giamatti a lot on this show.
Yeah, we have. Yeah, he came up with obviously 12 Years a Slave came up, but I'm a American Splendor aficionado.
We talked about with American Splendor. I brought him up with Win Win in
Win-Win, good basketball movie. Oh, wrestling movie.
Yep.
Yeah, the kids seem ageless. Well, that is Heath Ledger. He did not age, so
he didn't.
Let's be honest. Lost in Comics, Oscar, Chris. I'm not sure who we got, but love to see you guys. So that is our wrap up. We ended up with 3, and I don't remember who in the chat picked 3, but somebody guessed that we would have 3 movies in common, and they were correct.
Yeah,
that was exciting for me.
I knew we would with Silence of the Lambs, and I figured you were going to pick Godfather over Godfather 2, so I knew those two. And Spotlight was up there. I was wondering about you with American Beauty. That
would have been top 20.
I was trying to pick which ones, and I was like, I felt like maybe a Gladiator could be up there. So, but
I don't think that's a hot take. A lot of people feel that way, and I have felt that way at many occasions in my life. But tonight it was Godfather 1 when I was put to the test by the man here. That's how it came out.
I knew you were going to pull that crap. I knew it. I was like, he's going to try and get 11 movies in his picks. And I was like, no.
That's the kind of player I am. Don't hate the player, hate the game. We're going to get out of here. That is it for tonight's big show. We will be back in 2 weeks on the 24th. We're going to be looking at the movies that are nominated for Best Picture this year.
Correct.
And I've been very slow on watching them, but I've got a bunch of catching up to do over the next 2 weeks. But those of you that want to watch as well, on my Instagram, and I believe on your Instagram as well, we posted the thumbnail that Greg created listing the sites where you can find some of those films. Now, we admit as well some of those films are no longer available. They've been shuffled around a
The
little
only
bit.
one I think that is actually wrong off that is Judah.
Was
I
on
had
HBO.
it on HBO Max, and it's no longer on HBO Max anymore. I just assumed it was staying there, but I forgot they do their month period thing.
Yeah. Everybody has their like switch over at the beginning of a new month, and some of them have come off of streaming, like Judah on HBO.
Yep. But I know Trial of the Chicago Seven. Seven. That's still, I believe, on Netflix. I know Nomadland is still available, I think, on Amazon Prime or Hulu.
The Sound of Metal is on
Sound
Amazon
of Metal
Prime.
is on Prime.
And there's another one on Netflix that I'm blanking on right now.
With Gary Oldman.
Yes, Mank. And so those there's a ton of Best Picture nominees this year that you can watch streaming, and then join us on the 24th because we're going to be talking about what we felt about those movies and what movie we would pick to win and what movie we think will win. Which is two separate categories, as you heard us discuss.
And a lot of those movies, if you can get to watch those 8 movies, and I get it, some of them are, I think, like Promising Young Lady is one that you can rent, but it's like $3.99 to rent. Like, I did look to see that there are other ones that we might not be able to get to because it's like $20 to rent it or buy it. And then I'd just be honest, we won't. So we'll try our best to get to it, but if we can't, we can't. But
I think I should be able to get to all of them, but we'll see. Yeah.
A lot of those are going to be, you got a lot of best actors, best supporting actors or actresses, directors that are in there too, which I think would be fun for the discussion. So again, 2 weeks, that's 8 movies. I know you can at least see 4 without a doubt and be probably pretty good on a lot of that. Right. My goal is to watch more too. If there's other ones that are streaming that have some other like best actor or actresses and stuff, I won't buy, but if they're streaming. So
I'll have to check out Wolf Hall. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's our goal for 2 weeks from tonight. And if you want to be here in the chat and hear our reviews and hear our picks, we'd be happy to have you. And of course, if you've watched some of those and want to give us your takes, we were happy to have those as well. So, Greg, I know you dropped a video on Friday. What do you got coming up on the channel now?
I mean, it's the same Monday, every Monday doing interviews. So last Monday I dropped an interview I did with Tony Fleece, who's the author of Stray Dogs from Image Comics.
Everybody's talking about that one. Yeah.
It's great. It's Wednesday. I did a new game show with Comic Burrito, who was in the chat here, but I'm thinking that was Cole, but it was Todd. Where we are trying to get YouTubers to come on and do trivia because everyone was like, who's the smartest, who knows the most about comics? And we were like, what a fun way to try and reverse it and be like, get comic YouTubers, significant others or grandmother, that, and just build the, like, because a lot of people, it kind of came to because a lot of people start to watch Name That Character with people that aren't super into comics and they're like, oh, it's a fun gateway, and we're like, this could be another fun gateway. And so we've already got some channels that say they've talked to their wife or partner or husband and they're like, they are in and they want to do it. So like it should be just interesting to see what happens. So
I promise you I'm never gonna be a contestant on that show.
Unless
I can bring Kate or Charlie and I'm gonna win. I'm just telling you.
If it's Kate or Charlie, it's no fair.
It's a lock.
And then we got to Name That Character we do every Friday. I'm on Justin Regan's every Tuesday. I was on JP with Gotham City Chronicles on Monday. We were talking about Dark Victory, which was a lot of fun with him and Kavi. So
awesome. Is it true, Bearded, you are not a fan of the current Swamp Thing? No, he was. If you listened to the show, he was just feeling like it was a very dense read, a very complicated read that made him feel like he was missing stuff. And I will say I felt the same way about the Alan Moore run. Honestly, there's a lot of reading and a lot of complicated story and a lot of things that you had to either wait to find out or figure out on your own. And I think that's the style of Swamp Thing as a series of comics. And Rom V is doing a great job of copying or at least being true to the Alan Moore version, but it doesn't make it any easier to read.
It's been tough for me, and probably that statement came from, I think I probably said I want to like it more. Like I feel like I should love this book, and I'm at that. I don't know what's going on enough that I'm like I'm in it a little bit longer, but I might have to just sit out and wait to read it as a whole because it's hard for me to track. Like I didn't get into any of the Hickman stuff with the X-Men universe because I started to read it. I'm like, this is just, it's too dense for me, and it's not the style of comics I liked. So, yeah.
So yeah, I don't think it's a hot take because it's pretty accurate to the story. And I had a bit of a challenge with the Alan Moore stuff. It just took me a little while to get through it and then find something that I really appreciated about it. For me, I dropped an edited video that's doing pretty well for me, at least on Thursday. So check out the comic community news. I'm already editing the next one for next week. I'm off all day tomorrow. There's no comic gories again until the 19th. So I'm sorry for those fans. We got to wait a little while for that one. We got comics. So we're doing the X-Men show on Tuesday on my channel. And then I'm on the Comic Core Wednesday. And I think I'm then off for a good little while after that. So I'm going to have time to do some editing and get some things done.
And watch movies.
And watch a ton of movies for sure. Thanks all of you for coming. I hope you enjoyed, and definitely leave us some of your lists in the chat in the description below, whatever, the comment section, that thing. Leave us your favorite movies that we didn't get to because there's obviously a bunch of great choices. I'm not sure how you've read so far on Swamp Thing, John, but the Batman story is worth it. I've only read the first Alan Moore Swamp Thing, Saga of the Swamp Thing volume trade paperback.
Okay.
So that's as much as I've done. That's all right, Gore. We love a good tease around here.
I do too. It's appreciated.
But I am enjoying the Rom V run, but I think it's because I had that little backstory to go into it. Thanks, everybody, and we will see you back here in 2 weeks.